equally is the case as far as American lawyers are concerned. The life of the law, a famous American judge, Oliver Wendell Holmes, put it, is not logic, but experience. One who makes law, or who practices law, or who has anything to do with law, is guided by his experiences rather than by logic. And it is that experience that shapes the law. So in understanding the law, the attitudes of a lawgiver, like Senator Azeez, it is necessary that one must understand the experiences that shaped him. Senator Azeez was born in Jaffna, in Vanarpune, which is very close to the center of Jaffna town. So he was born in 1911, and his first school was the Jaffna Mohammedan School, at which he studied the Quran. Later he moved to a school that was run by the Ramakrishna Mission, the Vaidishwara College at Vanarpane. When he was around 10 years old, and he was at Vaidishwara College for 3 years. And his daughter, his sister Marina, whose presence we greatly miss today, has spoken about, or has quoted his father as having said this relating to the period he spent at the Vaidishwara College, or Vaidishwara Vidyalaya at Jaffna. And these are the words that are quoted as having been made by Senator Azeez. He said, "I now feel thrice blessed that I did go to the Vidyalaya and nowhere else. My period of stay, February 1931 to June 1923, though pretty short quantitatively, was extremely long qualitatively. It was at the Vidyalaya that I first became acquainted with the devotional hymns of exquisite beauty and exceeding piety for which Tamil is so famed through the ages and throughout the world." So his early life was shaped to a large extent by the experiences he had at this school in Vanarpane, the Vaidishwara College, which exists to this day, and because it is situated in the largely Muslim quarters of Jaffna, which have been depleted because of the leaving of the Muslims from that area, still consists of a large cohort of Muslim students. So after studying at Vaidishwara College, Senator Azeez studied at the Jaffna Hindu College. And here again, he came into contact with the different animal and cultural practices of the people of Jaffna. Again, there was a large cohort of Muslim students studying at the Jaffna Hindu College. So the experiences that Senator Azeez had in his formative years was steeped in the culture and the traditions of the people of Jaffna, which of course made him a Jaffna Tamil Muslim. And hence my title that he was a Muslim Tamil leader, or a Tamil Muslim leader, whichever way you want to put it. He was very much rooted in the culture of the people of Jaffna. I want to digress now to make two comments. One relates to the fascination of Senator Azeez with what is referred to as Arab Tamil. Arab Tamil or Arabic Tamil is something that fascinated me when I started reading about Senator Azeez. It is something which I had not heard about before, that there was a distinct language called Arabic Tamil, and that the uncle of Senator Azeez, Asana Yelbe Ali Pular, was a distinguished authority on Arabic Tamil and had contributed tremendously to the literature of Arabic Tamil. Azeez himself has written an article on Arabic Tamil that is referred to as Arabic Tamil and Anglo Tamil. So he had a general feeling for this language that was written in Arabic with new words introduced into the Arabic to denote consonants that did not exist in Arabic. So he had a distinct script in the sense that though the original Arabic script was used, it also had certain letters that had to be introduced so as to signify the pronunciation that was necessary to speak Tamil. So it was Tamil that was written in an Arabic script that was modified to suit the needs of the speakers of Arabic Tamil. Now, going back to something that is known as the gallstone. It has nothing to do with the human body, but an obelisk that the mirror Cheng Ho had brought to Sri Lanka and put up at Gaur. So it's referred to as the gallstone. Cheng Ho was a Chinese admiral who came along what is now referred to as the Marine Silk Road, the Silk Road that goes on a maritime route. And the route is now defined by the Chinese as involving the route that Cheng Ho had taken in the early 15th century. So Cheng Ho came to Sri Lanka in 1409 and put up this gallstone in the city of Gaur. And it had three languages, Chinese of course, because that was the language of Cheng Ho, Tamil, and the third language was thought to be Persian or Arabic. But modern scholars say that the third language was what is known as Arwi, A-R-W-I, or Arabic Tamil. And that Arwi, or Arabic Tamil, was the language of commerce that was spoken by people on the trade route between South India, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Sri Lanka, and into Southeast Asia. So Arabic Tamil then was an extensive language that involved not only Sri Lanka but captured a whole region extending from South India to Southeast Asia, which signifies that the presence of the Muslim community in Sri Lanka started well before 1409 when the Gaul obelisk was established by Cheng Ho. This is significant because of the fact that the supremacists theories would say that some of the people of Sri Lanka, which is a plural society, are relative newcomers, and that their right to exist in this country is therefore subject to a certain amount of doubt. But that is not really so, because there have been so many communities which have come to establish themselves in Sri Lanka from very early times. I move on to a second factor, the fascination that Senator Azeez had with the Ramayana. It's a very strange thing that this Muslim scholar, so steeped in the Islamic tradition, having a father who was a well-known Islamic figure in the politics of Daphne. Having an uncle like Asena Legbe Ali Pulavar, who was a well-known Islamic scholar, was still interested in the Ramayana. And he traces his interest in the Ramayana to the days in which he studied it as a prescribed text for his O-levels. The teacher he mentions was Konamaram teacher from Kokuya, who taught Tamil at the Japanese Hindu College. So his fascination then became early. It started early. And thereafter, when he was a government agent in the eastern province, he came across what was known as Telukutu, or street theatre, which really embodied the Ramayana stories. The Telukutu is a unique form of theatrical performances that the people in the eastern province undertook. So his fascination for the Ramayana can also be traced to his interest in the performance of Telugu. Thereafter, he read a paper at the Tamil conference that was held in Malaysia, and there again the Tamil conferences were held by a Catholic priest called Xavier Taninagan, who was a particular friend of Senator Azeez. And the paper that he read at this conference was on the influence of Ramayana in Malaysia and Indonesia, two Islamic countries. So if you look at the dance forms in Indonesia, you will find that they are particularly influenced by the story of the Ramayana. And that the story itself had undergone Islamic twist, very much like how the Ramayana had undergone a Tamil twist when Amban wrote it in Tamil. So there is an Islamic version of the Ramayana in Indonesia, in the sense that it has been Islamized in accordance with the culture of their country. So the manner in which this was done constituted the basis of the paper that Senator Azeez delivered before the conference in Malaysia. So the learning in Canada of Senator Azeez was very extensive. And as I said earlier, he spent a lot of time writing in Tamil, producing many articles which are all recorded in a very important book by Dr. Nadia, whom I met this morning. Azeez Tamil is a book that Dr. Nadia wrote, which describes the extent of the contribution that Senator Azeez made to Tamil literature. The associations he had formed, like his friendship with Swami Vivekananda, who was the principal of Sivananda Vidyalaya in Bangalore. Senator Azeez was government agent in the Bangalore district. So he had this close association with Vivekananda Iyer, who was the principal of Sivananda Vidyalaya in Bangalore, and later the first professor of Tamil at the University of Ceylon. So this connection then between Senator Azeez and this Swami was a close one, which led to several projects involving the translation of Tamil, of many works into Tamil. I will now go on to the main thrust of my paper, my oration, the contribution of Senator Azeez to the formation of legal principles. I have chosen just three subjects in an extensive record of speeches. The speeches have been brought together in a volume that was edited by Muhammad Ali, the son of Senator Azeez, along with his associates. And I have chosen just 3 topics in order to illustrate the nature of the contributions that Senator Azeez has made. Senator Azeez started his role as a senator in 1952, when Ali and I were just about 10 years old. And he ended it in 1921, when we were just about to graduate. So he had a long innings as a senator, spanning over a decade. And he made many speeches, like, for example, highlighting the Workhouse Ordinance, which was of particular interest to the Islamic religious community. But I speak of just 3 areas. One is attitude towards capital punishment. 2 is contribution to the discussion of the early legislation on bribery. And 3 is participation in a very significant way in the manner in which the single-only bill was introduced into Sri Lanka. First, capital punishment. Senator Azeez was opposed to capital punishment. He said that it was a barbarous form of punishment which should be totally abolished. The bill, however, only wanted to suspend capital punishment, not to abolish it. But Senator Azeez's firm conviction was that the sanctity of life was so basic to all religions that the state should not be able to take human life. So he supported the total abolition of capital punishment, though at the time he made this argument, only some 36 countries had abolished capital punishment. Today there are 113 countries which have totally abolished capital punishment, and along with Sri Lanka, some 28 countries which have suspended the punishment. So though it remains on the status quo, and it remains as a possibility under our Constitution, capital punishment, though imposed, is never exacted by the state. So to that extent then, a certain progress has been made in Sri Lanka. But of course that progress is very illusory, because as everyone knows, extrajudicial killings in this country, sometimes inspired by the state, have become very common. And of course, as long as there are extrajudicial killings that take place, the fact that that capital punishment is abolished is of little significance. Then of course, recently we have the phenomenon of pardons being given by presidents for people who have been condemned as killers. So recently we have also the Supreme Court decision in which the pardon that was given to Domingo de Silva was challenged. And the Supreme Court very boldly said that the giving of a pardon to Domingo Silva would be illegitimate because of the fact that procedures that were necessary for the giving of such pardons had not been followed by the President. The giving of pardon would have required that there should be consent from the Attorney General, from the judge who imposed that punishment, as well as from other officials. So these requirements have not been complied with, and the Supreme Court therefore held that the conferment of the pardon was improper. I would say that even if such consents had been obtained, the court would have the right to inquire into whether those consents were properly given, whether there were valid reasons as to why the Attorney General or the presiding judge had a cause to give his consent for the pardon to be exercised. The royal pardon is the progenitor of the pardon of the president in Sri Lanka. In the case of the English king, a pardon is given only on the recommendation of the Prime Minister in circumstances where there is a situation where the evidence was not properly appreciated by the jury, or where there is a public understanding that the offender had undergone sufficient punishment, or where that person is so terminally ill that it would be an act of kindness, or considered an act of kindness, that he should be released. So when President pardons offender, certainly it is a tremendous step to take, and it is not in accordance with the manner in which the royal prerogative has been exercised. The exercise of which is a forerunner of the presidential pardon, that such a pardon should be given. So we have the situation where President Sirisena also pardoned an atrocious offender, as President Rajapaksa did the pardoning of a man called Ratnayaka, who was responsible for the massacre of 8 civilians in Minnesota. President Sirisena pardoned Atte Janasaratero, the leader of the Guru Palasena, who instigated violence against minority communities. So these pardons that are given are all questionable pardons, and they go against the preservation of the sanctity of life, because these were men who had taken life in most atrocious circumstances, and the idea that they should be pardoned for political reasons sits very uneasily with the purposes that animated Senator Azeez in suggesting that there should be an abolition of capital punishment. He certainly did not contemplate the issuance of pardon, or the idea that there would be no accountability for extrajudicial killings that take place in this country. Second, I go to deal with bribery. Again, we see Senator Azeez taking a very firm stance against bribery from very early times. So in a speech he makes in 1954, he points out that in a young democracy like ours, it is very essential that all possible steps should be taken against bribery and accusations of bribery. So this was at a time when bribery had not become a major issue in our country. Thereafter, of course, it has become a huge issue that undermined the very economic structure of this country. Senator Azeez's position in 1954 was that there should be strong legislation enacted on bribery, and that there should be a special machinery set up in order to ensure that bribery is suppressed. This was not done, and it's very strange to read that debate because of the fact that there were senators who opposed what Senator Azeez said on the ground that it would be a violation of human rights to deal with people who are accused of taking bribes in the manner that was suggested by Senator Azeez. The fact that there was such a soft attitude that was taken to bribery in early times, despite the caution and the caution that Senator Azeez had indicated, is the beginning of the incidents that led to the present economic crisis, where we find that much